I've got like my 5th tea of the day. I'm sort of done for the day, but I'm just gonna see what I can smash out. Sorry to make slurping noises. Yeah, nothing new, just catching up. Info, quick build. You've seen these before, so there's nothing that special. I've got 3 out today. Grab some parts. I've got just projects lying around the place everywhere, so it's extra messy. Hopefully the internet keeps up with the stream. So today I got a couple of my big fuzzers out and 1 brown sound to USA, Berlin and Australia. 2 mono jacks, 2 stereo jacks, 2 battery snaps. So yeah, the office is just cluttered. There's boxes of enclosures and I wouldn't say more cluttered than usual, but I could do better. So I'm trying to do these videos, invite people into my life, and then I figure it'll be a self-management technique and maybe I'll get my office together and just have embarrassment. You know, negative reinforcements sometimes a valid learning or teaching tool. Controversial. I'm using a 0 ohm resistor or a non-resistor. I don't know. Can you call it a resistor? It still resists. Even a wire resists. I wonder what's in these things though. Like, I don't know if you can see it. Like, does the wire just go straight through, or does it? They just wrapped a little epoxy thing on there. So yeah, my official work day is just about done on poops, but of course I keep going. And these are going to Captain Cherry's Guitar Lounge, to Liz and Scott, out rural Victoria. A very cool little shop. They've got vinyl and they've done some cool demos, and they seem really interested in what they've got in their stock, and they're trying to stock some Aussie brands too. There's a lot of people telling me that, like, oh, I've got an Aussie amp, I've got Aussie guitar, I'm glad I'm getting Aussie pedals. I'm like, oh, that's cool, thanks. Very limiting. I'm gonna get some more of these. These run out pretty quick, you know, every pedal needs one, so. Is there a Taiwanese made DC? There are. I'd like to talk up the quality of these. Maybe some Japanese ones are better, but they're actually sort of really at a high standard these days. All the stuff from Taiwan, like this box, the enclosures, the Hammond expensive good ones are also Taiwanese. So those switches are Taiwanese. Some of the best parts I can get just are made in Taiwan, you know, not Germany or Japan or USA. Yeah, they're really killing the game. Alright, DCs are in. No big LEDs on these ones. Foot switches. Need hardware. So I got a little hardware box. Every time I build a pedal, I just go to this. So there's a small washer on the outside and a double thick nut. And unfortunately, at the moment, the old ones are going to landfill. The ones that came with the hardware. Castlemaine, I was trying to think of where Captain Cherry's is. But yeah, if you're in Country Vic, up, what's that, northeasty sort of, they've usually got most of my line in stock, or they try to. But other than that, there's not many Australian stores I'm doing at the moment. I've got Deluxe is the big one for me. And they're like the big shop of Melbourne for pedals. The biggest and the best. Because Michael is awesome and he has a great business. And he works his ass off, I can see. But most of the shops I've dropped, focusing on direct sales. Because I just had to shift business strategies around a bit. It wasn't the best. It's still not great. It's definitely not great. But that's been working really well. Just focusing on online sales. You know, I've only, I think, had one returned pedal where someone just said they didn't like the pedal. So that posting is seeming to work for me. It was a rat and it was a high gain, and you see, just had too much feedback, too many feedback issues. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. He said, look, honestly, it's great, but I just can't use it. I'm like, yeah, cool. So if I factor that in, that's like less than 0.1%. I don't even need to crunch that. Like, excuse me, I'm going to slurp. I've made this. I will drink it. Ah, yes. It is energy. It is power. All right. These ones, the guts should actually be pretty quick and easy to build. Usually the battery on the GoPro lasts about an hour. So I'll just see what I can do before it clonks off, probably. So that happening, thanks for watching at that time, and I'll catch you some other time. I'm not being rude, I'll just cut off at some point. Rudely. Just turn my iron on, that's coming up to temp, if you can see. It takes, I don't know, 7 seconds or something. No extractor, because then you can't hear me. At this point I'll probably do my pedal at a time until all the hardware's mounted in. I've got this box of clippings. I used to like try not to throw anything out, but at some point that stops being practical. Like at one point when I was young, I'm like, I'm just going to save every clipping and just have jars and jars of clippings. Because it's stupid, like we use these through-hole parts and chuck out so much of it. Crap, I'm just remembering I'm out of prepped wires as well. So maybe that can be a boring job for tomorrow, just doing wire prep for the morning. So I've been pretty stressed about just sort of working out the work order of what I'm building for who, and like I've taken on a lot, so yeah, I can do that, I can do that, and it catches up like, yeah, but when? So this is an easy one. I'm just slipping something to a shop. They've asked me, can I have some stock? I'm like, yeah, that's easy, I'm gonna prioritize that. But some things I've just finished with, like from December, the end of last year. I had heaps of issues with parts, with printing. But I squeezed through somehow because people were awesome. Alright, I'll probably have to cut up some wires. So I've got this book full of like my wire measurements. I don't visually do it each time. Because I think it's pretty important to get the wires right. If you're going to do something, make it repeatable, sustainable, repeatable. Sustainably repeatable? Yeah, also that. 1, 2, I went 3, 4 of these. And then from that I'm going to make one that's just a tiny bit shorter for the link, which I'm about to put in here, which mutes the input with the grounding when it's in bypass. There's a few ways this switch could have gone. This isn't the best, but this is the most practical for manufacturing and sound and reliability for me. I could have gone many different ways, and in some new builds it is going different ways. That's all I need for now. So I think I've got the other ones down here. So normally I've got a box of prepped wires, which is getting a bit thin. So I need one of them later. And I really don't like wire prep, it's just so tedious. It's like a factory job. I've had a lot of factory jobs that can be fun, but I think you know what I mean. When you have a tedious, repetitive, like a no-brainer sort of job, where you just zone out. Some of those things, like I wish I could just like have a task at hand. Like I used to have to drive for hours and hours. I'm like, can I just put a keyboard on my dash and play scales or something? No, no you can't. There's laws. People have determined already that you can't do that. You know, the worst one is try to play a racing game while you're driving. And you just got like your brain, hand-eye, like it can't differentiate which steering wheel you want. I think I'm just mumbling to fill the awkward silence because like you guys aren't talking. Okay, let's go pre-tin these. So normally I'd do this, I'd hit them in that bath over there if you can see it, but that is not preheated and it takes a lot of energy to do that. Good enough. Let's fan these out. Oh crap. Yeah, good enough. It's good to work on your tinning technique in a way that doesn't, it just makes best use of the flux and not constantly adding more. What I would like to do is get the iron at the front and the solder coming in from somewhere else so the heat will pull it through rather than trying to like paste it onto the copper. And usually if I've got a blob, I try not to wipe too much. I make use of the blob. If I've got a blob building up, that means I probably have to change what I'm doing, unless, yeah, there's probably a tidier way I could have been soldering. I'm changing between saying soldering and soldering. We say solder in Australia, so I'm gonna, I don't know. But just the word soldering, it's like, sounds like sodomy or something. Like I just solderized my pedals. Get these battery connectors ready, or just take off, I don't know what that is. About that much. It's not too critical, but it is thought out. Too much, too little, obviously there's problems each way. And how much you can put in will also depend on the pot arrangement. Like if you got 4 pots and the 2 of them are right down the bottom, you haven't got as much space for it to fold up inside, so trying to factor everything like that. And I still haven't wiped the iron yet. I'm tinning stuff and so this one is a positive ground fuzz face. But as far as the battery connectors wired up to the DC socket, it's all the same. From the DC socket onwards, it's going to change a bit. So the polarity is the exact same way I would do a regular negative ground. So I've got the black negative wire going to this common one, and the positive going to the switching one, which is the barrel on the outside. Oh, it's going to be a bit tight. Of course, because you're watching. Let's see what happens. Yep. And I didn't grab it by the insulation. Yep, that'll make it. That is fiddly. I just want to, yep. I want the wire to be in the middle of the insulated part. I am cleaning the tip now. I still had a bit of a blob on it. So I'm going to hold everything where I want the final position to be. I have to hold one finger here, and tuck it into about its final resting spot, which will be underneath these two jacks. I like to put that jack in first, just so I know it doesn't get crimped. This one's not a problem, but the one with the LED space is tight. Anything I can do to make avoid a repeatable error, I try and do, because I just don't want to stress about, you know, that 1 in 100 or something issue that comes up. Because there's thousands of operations in this thing, you know? One goes wrong. So there's that link I was talking about. I'll put the shorter one in first because the longer one's going to share with another wire later. So if two things are sharing the terminal, I try and give them a little bit more insulation stripped off. Sorry, yeah, that's why I meant the shorter stripped. Take this, I'm pre-flipping my hand over, put a kink in it, push it up with my thumb. Yep. Now the stereo jack for the input, which will switch the power. Yep. This is the most fiddly, maybe second most fiddly actually. But this particular joint, I can see to not be very friendly if someone had to build my pedal. Did I not get spared nuts? Maybe I didn't. Counting all your parts too is another error checking. So get the right amount. If there's too much or too little, something might be off. Oh crap. They seem to just keep sliding up the desk. Or the bench rather, it's not a desk, it's a bench. Why has this already got some... So that's the input. Good, it slid just at the last second. Before I solder that in, I'm going to push it aside so that there's a gap from those rubbery DC lines. This is Teflon wire, but those ones I don't want to accidentally touch, or plus I don't want the audio sitting right beside the power line. I'm just coming in from one direction, I can't get underneath. So I've just tried to get the minimum amount to blob across and get out. And the output jack, I'm going to put the kink, the first one, not directly at the joint, just after, so that way when it gets soldered, if it gets moved in the future, it shouldn't, but you know, It's not going to stress at the joint and potentially snap as easily. It's hard to talk and do all this at the same time, but I was just watching Spruce Effects. He's doing the same as me. He's like mumbling off and like you know, keeping in mind on the primary task. That's, I might just trim that surplus. And that's the preliminary wiring pre-done. Easy one. And this one's about the same actually. So I get this bypass link in. It's mechanically folded over. And I'll fill the whole terminal. Put a little kink in there and then feed it through up until that kink. Fold it over again. And fill the whole terminal. Okay, next I'll do the battery before I put the link in. I'm just trying to work from the bottom up in terms of how much room everything has and what's lying on top of everything else. Underneath the output jack. Most of my pedals are this 1590B arrangement, just because it's actually easy for me to build and it's familiar for me to build. So it sort of empowers me to be able to just experiment and get new builds out there quicker and work on the mods and stuff rather than a new layout. And plus I actually just like the smaller builds. I can hold it in my hand and it's lighter. Once you get the top mount jacks, you usually need a bigger enclosure. It's heavier to post. It uses more materials, and it's compact. You know, it fits. I understand on the board it might need some more jack space, etc. But hey, Ryan, if you can hear me, where was I? So at this point, yeah, that little link. Stereo input. This has a little bit too much blobbed on it. We'll see how it grabs. Yeah. So that's kinked on about a 30-degree angle. And kind of like someone learning to drive, I'm saying these things in my head and I'm talking them out to myself, like actually verbalizing them in my inner monologue. Which now you get to share in, because you're here. It's not my fault. I had nothing to do with it. I'll put that kink on there and this one before I solder it. Just because I like everything to be sort of as close to its final spot when the solder goes in. So I'm not soldering then bending, if possible. Just any black sooty smeg I just get off. Generally I don't clean with alcohols, brushes. if there's flux or something, I just scrape it off, because the more I try and clean, usually I just sort of make more mess. And this is a handmade pedal. It's a handmade process. It's I'm gonna try and make it as close to DIY, but upgraded DIY, like DIY for someone who's done it many, many times. So I don't mind seeing a little bit of handmade mess. I'll try and push this back because I don't want the insulation to be right at where the solder is terminating. Yep. Cool. Yeah, so the two I have to do today, tonight, hopefully. And they need boards. So I'll go see, I think I'll need to build one for this one, and this one, the tweed I might already have. I did something. So yeah, there's just crap everywhere. Some pre-assembled bits, and these were some duds, minor blemishes. Got some drill damage. Boxes of, there's a breadboard I had going. I don't know when I'm going to pick that up. These are a lot of iffy scratches, like do I repair them? So yeah, I've had a lot of scraps. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So this will be a quick, easy, I tell myself, Tweedsville. For that I'll need some wires. Three of these. So this is in, out, and LED, which is pretty much the ins and outs of the foot switch as they relate to the circuit board. I won't need that because that normally goes to the big 10mm LED. This one doesn't have. That goes to the ground via the input jack and to DC positive. Wish I could have some music going, but if I chuck this on YouTube, they'll shut it down, and also that means you're gonna have to like listen to a crappy mic'd up recording. $10mm off that, and I'll keep that. I'll do these one at a time. I saw Dave Albrecht doing this once at his desk. And you know what? It works great. I don't like using those third-hand circuit board holder things. It's just not flexible enough. It's too restrictive. Like generally, if you're a musician, you already know how to do a lot of weird crap with your hands. And then I'll just give these a quick tinning. Hopefully like a minimum. And they have to be pretty flat without blob on those ones because they're going in the foot switch terminal. Oh, what's this? C2 is missing. What was C2 on one of these? I think it was 100. And that cap's... Oof. Why is that missing? I'll double check that. Let's go. You probably can't see what I'm doing. Open up Eagle, Tweedsville. Output, yeah, 100 now. I was pretty sure, but like 90 something percent, but so my 100 nanos, I got some here. That'll do for now. I think when I was building these boards, I just ran out. So seeing how many variants I have of the same value cap, anyone could have been interchangeable. And usually I put a kink on the leads, but I'm just going to push it firmly and do this. Because these leads, they look really nice. I'm going to keep them. Some of these expensive axial caps, they chuck on heavier, longer, thicker leads because people are paying more and they expect that, I guess. Alright, that's nearly good to go. So I've written values on the back. Volume as, alright, 500 kc, C or B work. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll go with the B. Uh, 50 kb, definitely the way I've done mine for the input to control the gain. I did see today I had an LED lying around spare. Like I picked up by accident. I'm like, what is this doing here? The legs are all kinky. Kinky legs. Again, there is stuff everywhere. Very candid. Yeah, it doesn't look like a clean factory floor. I think if I worked with other people, maybe I'll be like guilted into... I remember I used to sweep up and clean my bench and cohabitate. So I had a big like spool of 1,000 of these, just flattening it out. I've also been collecting little offcuts of insulation, little Teflon sleeves, probably about 8mm. You can do either one or two or none of these. I don't think it's ever going to be a problem, but this is a $300 pedal, so I don't want to cut any corners for cost saving. It's just whatever I think is cool. Alright. I'm just going to put a kink right at the end. This bit's going to be clipped off just to stop it from running away from me. Now I need a single pole double throw center off switch. They're getting a little bit low. And double check always that you got the right, if you put in a non-center off or center off, you might cry. Might ruin your day, might undo an hour's work or something. Excuse me, this is for me. I need my brain stimulation as I clonk off for the day. Alright, so I'm recycling all of this hardware on this switch. That's tight. And PCB houses, depends how they run their router. Sometimes it's perfect. And I've changed this recently, so now they're going to be all loose, just in case. So they're going to be just right, or a little bit extra, and never too tight like that. But these switches, it's not going to die for the life of the pedal, I don't think. It is one of the weaker parts of the pedal, and still going to be interchangeable if you ever had any issues. Yeah. So I'm going to put that hardware back on, because it's spacing for me, so this dress nut gets the right amount of threads. Chuck these in. That's the gain pot, 50 kb. Volume, I'm using 500 kb. Now normally I chuck little insulation pot covers, or pot condoms, you might call them, but I won't with this one because I know where the the toggle switch, it's going to bring these up around about, if you can see that, I don't know where the camera is. So that's like plenty of space to not have anything short out underneath. No need to chuck extra plastic into a product, I think. So yeah, I guess there's nothing else to do. Look for parts missing, no. So I'm sort of trying to check over everything as I go. Just QC on the box, the printing. There's a lot of duds and seconds, and unfortunately I don't really sell the seconds. They usually get like recycled. I reprocess the boxes if I can, or they just go into a box of scraps I've got going until they get melted down, or I can find a way of chemically removing the powder coat that's not too nasty for the environment. Now I'm just going to softly tighten these up. By softly, I guess I mean loosely. I'm not going in. And what I'm going to do is just get them as close as I can to, as tight as I can before it has a risk of starting to turn the pot, if that makes sense. Because if I'm tightening them all, they're all going to be sort of twisted one way, which might not be bad. I'm just trying to avoid that. And I've left a little gap in here so I can get my pliers in, straighten things up. And then I'll solder them into their final positions. This takes a little bit of time sometimes. Depends how well it's all drilled and whatever. Who did this work? Come on, guys. It's a little shifter. And I've made that as tight as it's going to be for the life of the pedal. Normally I like to grab something just straight. Alright, this one might not be perfect, but I don't think anyone's going to look too critically, like 0.5 millimeter off registration. Actually, that's pretty good. So I'm looking at the height of all the components. I don't know if you can see, but like those electrolytic caps look like they just come past the edge of the enclosure. They will clear it because the lid comes up a little bit. And all my designs work that way, so I know they're just going to come short of not having to worry about touching up against the enclosure lid. Because nothing can short out, obviously. Bring that up a tiny bit. It is better if it's pretty flat. clean the tip. For this I'm trying to mostly heat the aluminium leg of the pot first, not the copper, because I want the heat to carry through to the bottom. It's important that the solder does go through both sides if possible, because then it's got a mechanical securing from it being able to move up and down without pulling on the pads. Like if you've got a mound of metal on each side, it's grabbing to the circuit board rather than sort of like making a clamp on the material. If it's just on one side, you're relying on it clamping to the copper, which is just glued to the board, so you just, you know, glue breaks. Copper's thin. And normally for the hardware, I'd run the extractor, because it's a lot of solder and a lot of fumes in one shot, but this way you can hear me. Yeah, cool. I'll do the LED last, so this pedal does come together pretty quickly. If the board's pre-done, the enclosure is pre-drilled and printed and stuff. I think this is my cheapest pedal. Just because it is easy enough to build. It must be my cheapest pedal. So I tried to budget things for what I would like how much money would I like to pay for a pedal if I was buying it, or my friends, or and this is if you get the boutique version of this pedal, it's actually really expensive, but you know, obviously it doesn't need to be. I can recreate it. It doesn't have to be overpriced, so I'm doing this is a fairly priced, I'd like to think. Lower end, lower upper end. Just try not to rip people off on this one. Like, it's a cool circuit too, but like, and I would pay a lot of money for a good dirt box, because I think that's like a primary effect. But for the component count and the simplicity of the design, if you're charging like $300, you're really ripping people. Maybe I should rip people. That could work. Just post your comments, like, should we? Now I've been thinking, I don't know how hard to make these. If you push it too far, you have the risk of being able to stomp it in. If you go down, you're sort of making a recess where you can... Oh, I thought I had Do Not Disturb off. I do. She's in my favorites, I guess. And I'm hoping that'll stay there, yeah. And I'll just try not to bump it. Yeah. Yeah. There's joints on the visible side. Like, I don't mind if they're ugly underneath, but they come up neater if I cut the lead and then do the joint. See, it leaves a bit of flux smear around the board too. So I like to try and do them one shot. Now, out of these two, which one do I need? I guess the shorter one. No, longer one. And this will make the input jack switch the earth, which will then sort of switch the power on and off. Probably should have done that before these. Wasn't paying attention. Which way can I come in now? Whatever. It worked. This would be the most fiddly joint of the pedal. because it can pop out. It's like the last joint too. You've got the black, you got the red one, try not to melt. You've got the black one, it's already sort of like trying to pull one way. So I'll paste it in quickly and get out. And I don't like to paste, but paste I will. Try and round this out. Alright, so that's done. Oops, that should have been done earlier as a failsafe. Would have been fine. That's done minus the knobs, minus testing, signature, boxing, and that's going to go to Captain Cherry's in Castlemaine. The Tweedsville, it's like a Les Leas, which is based on the Electro Distortion. Very simple circuit, but I like it for that reason. It's very powerful circuit. And we got to do this guy. I don't have a board built. I'm building them as required at the moment. Good thing about this board, I don't need a bill of materials because I've just written all the values on the back. Because it's a stock fuzz face, so it's, you know, I don't need to hide anything, or there's no room for variability in the future. I decided I want to keep this stock anyway, so well, the original fuzz face didn't have a 6.2 volt Zener diode in it, but this one does. But the parts it has in common are all stock values. I'll start with the lowest components first, so the thinnest components that sit flattest to the board, so that each time I'm doing it flat against the board, flat against the bench, and they're not coming forwards. If a part's not sitting flat on the board, it comes off this way. You have the potential you can push it and can damage the pads. I can't push that, so I can't accidentally push that joint and damage that pad now. So I got that. There is a protection diode. No, they're not 1 in 4 00Xs, they're 1 in 5 819s. So these will start conducting closer to 0.1 volt, 100 millivolt, rather than 7, 8, whatever, 6, whatever a regular diode was going to do for you. And see how that's a tight squeeze. Check the polarity is right, and it is. This one, you know, I'm going to cut it because I know it's not jumping out. In this container I've got 2 different lengths. I'm trying to recycle those because these are good leads, jumpers and whatever, where I want something thick and mechanical. That's cool. So I think there's like 4 resistors. I know one of them's obviously going to be a 33. I mean, one of them's over here. Amongst all my mess. Now that I've built a few of these, they're coming along a bit quicker. If there's any of that, the through hole plating come through, I want to get it off now because it'll show up later and look ugly if I don't. I'm just going to kink the leads out, so that's going to be held firm against the board again. 8K2 will be, oh no, over here. So I've got this box at the moment full of Mojo oversized resistors and such. Why is 8K2 not here? 2K. Maybe it's in here. 8K2 regular ones. That's kind of weird. $220. I need one of these. Unless I've got some parts in, I haven't restocked them, but I don't think that's the case. So I'll put it somewhere stupid maybe. 8K2, I need the hundreds. I'm just going to go through all of these and see where my, sorry, 8K2s went. 470 ohm, I'm going to need one of them anyway. I'll grab that out. So this is sort of my fuzz face resistors box. It takes up, yeah. 330. Sorry, I have to go through this systematically now. I don't know where these bits went. 3K3. 33. 33 as metal. That's them. Out of order for some reason. 3K3, I'll put it after. What's this? 2. And there's 100 as well.